Douglas continues as he tries to resurrect his championship career. His opponent, a huge heavyweight challenger from Kansas City. His name is Brian Scott, and he can punch. It's boxing, and it's back on CBS Sports.
And just went into a sort of, just isolated myself, even from my family.
Douglas stopped caring about himself. His weight ballooned to 400 pounds, and he fell into a diabetic coma. Doctors gave him a choice, lose weight or die. Buster chose life. He returned to the ring, not to fight, but to rehabilitate himself. In the process, his competitive spirit returned. After losing nearly 150 pounds, Buster started his comeback. He has fought and won 3 times. But more importantly, he's back in the game of life.
You know, once I got out of the hospital, once the Lord spared my life, it wasn't just to get out the hospital to live, but to get back into the game.
Well, Buster Douglas back in the game of life and back in the game of boxing. Happy to be there. He knows he's lucky to be alive. He's excited about taking another run at the heavyweight championship. Today, he must get through Brian Scott, a 272-pounder. The action is coming up. The CBS Sports Show continues after this message and a word from your local station. Nancy, we're ready for heavyweight action here. Let's take a look at the tail of the tape. James Buster Douglas, former heavyweight champion of the world. At 6'4", 240 pounds. Now he's taken off 11 pounds from his last outing, and with a reach of 78 inches. Scott, the bigger man, of course, as you can see, at 272. Here in the state of Connecticut, there is a mandatory standing 8 count if it's called for by the referee. The 3 knockdown rule is in effect. 3 knockdowns in a round would end the fight, and the fighter can be saved by the bell only in the last round. Let's go to our ring announcer for the introductions, Mark Biero.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Mohegan Sun Casino as Top Rank Incorporated in association with CBS Sports and Budweiser, the undisputed, undefeated king of beers. This Bud's for You presents CBS Sports Budweiser Boxing Series, main event of the afternoon, scheduled for 10 rounds heavyweights. Today's bouts are under the auspices of the Mohegan Tribal Commission, the chairman, Roland Harris. Ring officials assigned are judges at ringside from West Hartford, Connecticut, William Hutt; from New Britain, Connecticut, Steve Epstein; and from Avon, Connecticut, Glenn Feldman. Your referee for this event from Windsor, Connecticut, the sensational Steve Smoger. Introducing now the principals first. In the red corner to my right, wearing the white trunks with red flame trim, weighing in at 271 pounds with a professional record of 22 victories, 3 defeats. He has 13 wins by way of knockout and hails from Kansas City, Missouri, Brian Bam Bam Scott. His opponent in the blue corner, wearing the multicolored trunks, weighing 240 pounds with a professional record of 33 victories, 5 defeats, 1 draw, 21 wins by way of knockout. He hails from Columbus, Ohio, the former undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, James Buster Douglas. 10 rounds heavyweights.
All right, gentlemen, you were given your instructions at the weigh-in. I want you to obey my commands at all times, respect the bell at all times, above all, protect yourself at all times. This is a clean shot. That's a clean shot. God bless. Touch him up. Touch him up. Okay.
Come on, Brian.
36-year-old James Buster Douglas. He will be 37 on the 7th of April. And his opponent, there is James Buster Douglas, 33-5-1. His opponent, a huge guy, as you can see, Brian Scott, weighed in at 272. Now, he told us that he's been training hard to take off some of the excess stuff he's got up top. But he weighed 278 when he knocked out Courage Shabalala in just 2 rounds. And Shabalala was an undefeated heavyweight, a big puncher, a dangerous puncher, who many thought was on his way into the top 10, but that was slowed down, if not stopped, by Brian Scott. Let's see what he can do against the very experienced Buster Douglas.
Tim, I think the key to this fight is going to be Buster Douglas' jab. If Brian Scott can manage to avoid that jab or counter it, it's going to be a tough night for Buster. But Buster has a great left jab, an educated left hand, and wins most of his fights by setting up his combination with that jab.
For Buster Douglas's part, in his comeback, he started in his first fight in June of '96 at a 244-pound weight, defeating Tony La Rosa in 3 rounds. Then he ballooned up to 261. He went 10 to take the decision from Rocky Papelli. In his last outing in February this year, he was back down to 255, going the distance against Dick Ryan.
And there you can see Scott's weight taking over, pushing Buster Douglas back. That could be an important factor in this fight, Tim.
So for Douglas, trained down again to 240 pounds, closer to his prime weight, which was about 235. 6 years out of the ring before this comeback. Pretty hard to get back to your optimum weight. Scott talking to us yesterday, a lot of confidence. He said if Douglas thinks I'm just going to eat his jab all night, he's got a thought coming. And there's some more of that muscling that you were talking about, Gil. That may be part of his strategy to avoid eating the jab.
Well, again, Tim, that's what he did against the Courage Shabalala. He was able to pick him up and push him backwards. Very, very strong guy.
Short right from Douglas to the chin of Brian Scott. Under a minute to go in round number 1. There's another right hand landed by Douglas.
Well, Buster trying to pull up those trucks. That could indicate that he doesn't like those body shots from Scott.
And to the 32nd mark we go. That was a slip. He landed a good right hand, but then their feet got tangled up.
No knockdown.
And Steve Smoker, the referee, saw that and rules it no knockdown. There was a good punch just before the knockdown, or the slip as it was, when their feet got caught. Final seconds of round number 1. Buster Douglas and Brian Scott. On knockdown, you'll see the leg of Scott get tangled with the left foot of Douglas, and down he went.
It looked like Douglas threw him down with that left hand.
He did. He did get his arm up on his shoulder, but no knockdown ruled, and we're into round 2, scheduled for 10.
And Tim, one of the things that
Good combination by Douglas.
you know, Douglas is a good technician, Tim. And again, he sets everything up with that jab, and then he can really hit you with those combinations. But one of the things I didn't like about Buster, he was standing up between rounds, and I just don't think that's a good idea. You can't really take care of your fighter well when he's standing up. And then if he does start to sit down later in the fight, it becomes a psychological advantage for the other guy.
Well, we saw a lot of that with George Foreman in his comeback time after his long layoff. Maybe Douglas thinks that there's something to it with the success George has had.
It's got to keep the blood flowing. Figure when you get old, it doesn't flow that quickly.
Douglas trying to keep that jab out there, and Scott
is just pouring with his left jab, which is a mistake. He does have a good left jab, but he has to learn to snap it. There's that right hand to the body again by Scott.
Come on now, fight, baby.
Brian Scott now lives in Chicago from Kansas City. 3 losses in his pro career. They were to Tommy Morrison, Derek Roddy, and Jorge Gonzalez, the Cuban amateur gold medalist, who has had some success as a pro, but not a great deal. He was stopped by Riddick Bowe.
And Tim, I did the fight with Scott and Gonzalez, and Scott got married the day before the fight. He really wasn't in any kind of condition for that fight. But this time, again, he's had plenty of time to train for this fight. He's got the advantage of having a good win over Coach Shabalala, which would build up his ego.
And he said he's been on a special diet, been lifting weights, working out, taking off his cellulite, as he himself said. He's lost 8 pounds since Shabalala.
A little clumsy combination by Scott, but it was effective. It did land.
Under the 30-second mark, we go in round number 2. Douglas with a good right hand behind that jab. This is the lowest weight Douglas has been at since he began his comeback after 6 years out of the ring. Into the final seconds of round number 2. Buster Douglas and Brian Scott. A good look at James Buster Douglas. You heard him talk about the turmoil of that episode of the diabetic shock, and he was in a coma, and realized he's a lucky man just to be alive and thrilled to be back in the ring. Well, with March Madness winding down, CBS Sportline will still roll on. Get online to stay on top of your favorite sports with updates, breaking news, scores, and more. It's all at cbs.sportsline.com. Coming up next here today on CBS, the Final 2 show, live from Indianapolis. We'll preview tomorrow's national championship game between Arizona and Kentucky, all following today's fight. There's a close-up look at Brian Scott. Quite a character, Gil, and certainly a lot of confidence.
Well, he says he's throwing a retirement party for Buster Douglas. I think he really meant it.
We're into round 3. This is scheduled for 10. Tim Ryan and Gil Clancy here at the Mohegan Sun in Uncasville, Connecticut. Happy Easter to all of those of you celebrating this holiday. Hope you're enjoying your Easter Sunday afternoon.
As long as Scott stays on the outside with Buster Douglas, he's going to be picked apart. He has to do what he's doing now. Try to rough Buster up, move inside, throw those right hands to the body. But if he stays outside, Buster is a master. Very, very good boxer, good technician.
Douglas with 3 world title fights in his career. In 1987, he lost to Tony Tucker, fighting for the IBF crown. Then the huge upset in February of 1990, knocking out Mike Tyson. And then in 1990, just a few months later in October, losing it in a horrible performance to Evander Holyfield.
Well, right now, Buster Douglas has Brian Scott right at the range he wants, and he's picking Scott apart.
A little more snap, it seems, coming in Douglas's punch, too, as he's grown in confidence here. Into round 3.
Again, Scott has to make a brawl out of this. Has to get on the inside.
Don't punch, don't punch. Step.
Like there might be a little blood just at the top of the bridge of the nose of Brian Scott. A little nick in there between the eyes. And a good counter punch there by Scott off a good jab from Douglas right on that cut.
That's what Scott has to do, Tim. Throw that right hand to the body, come back with the left hook.
Douglas finding the range with a jab.
Well, speaking of range, Douglas has him right at the range he wants. Good left hook by Scott.
Under a minute to go in round 3.
If I was in Scott's corner, Tim, I'd have him moving in behind a jab and doubling his jab up. First jab is not that effective, but he can double it up, as Buster Douglas just did then.
Yes, he could take his clinic from Douglas on the jab. Of course, Douglas much more hand speed to deliver it with as well. And there's a hard right hand by Scott that backed up Douglas momentarily. And he throws a right hand lead, the former champion, going to the head of Brian Scott. Final seconds of round number 3. Buster Douglas picking it up against Brian Scott. Clancy, we're at the Mohegan Sun Casino in Uncasville, Connecticut. Round number 4. James Buster Douglas in the white trunks and Brian Scott in white with red trim. And there is now an ugly bruise under the right eye of Brian Scott and a little nick between the eyes.
That's one of those snapping left jabs of Buster Douglas. And Scott throws that right. That's what he has to do. He has to throw that right into the body and hook off it and continue to try to move Buster Douglas back. But when he stays right at that range, he's a perfect target for Buster.
Between rounds, we heard Douglas's trainer's longtime trainer, John Russell, telling him that get ready to throw that right hand, that Brian Scott's leaning in more and making an inviting target for it. We may see Douglas try to go for the knockout blows with his right.
That's his most effective combination, Brian Scott. Right into the body, left hook on the chin.
Don't punch, don't punch.
Here's a good right hand lead scored by Douglas.
And Tim Buster Douglas is perfectly relaxed in there right now. Has everything his own way. All that experience, good boxing ability, really showing with Buster Douglas now.
Left hook rocks Brian Scott. Now he fires back with a left hook of his own.
Again, Scott is throwing out one jab. One jab is not going to do it.
Break, don't punch, don't punch. Step, step. Hands up, Brian.
They're going to have to get some ant swell on that bruise underneath the right eye of Brian Scott. He's going to lose his vision in that eye completely.
Under a minute to go here in round 4, scheduled for 10. Douglas scoring at will. Scott firing back, but not with the same effect as Douglas.
Up to this point, Tim, I think Buster Douglas has shown me an awful lot of improvement from his last fight. If he continues going this way, he again could become a formidable heavyweight.
He'll be 37 on the 7th of April. Certainly in terms of getting his weight back close to his former fighting weight of the 230s, he's doing well at that. And a much improved performance so far here. Of course, against a guy 272, one punch can turn it around. We're in round number 4. Final seconds of the 4th round. Tim Ryan and Gil Clancy. Here's a look back into round number 4 as Douglas starts to pour it on. Now we're live in round number 5.
Scott is making the same mistake, staying out there and trying to outdo Buster Douglas. He just can't do that because Buster has too many feints, too many moves, and that superior left jab.
The bruise under Scott's right eye, a little more angry looking. Being peppered by the consistent left jab from Buster Douglas. There's a good right hand. Douglas seems to pick up his tempo with each round, and that's another good sign for his corner in terms of his conditioning.
Well, Tim, I mentioned I did his last fight, and he still had plenty of stamina left in that 10th round. He was still dancing around, but he didn't look anything like he looks this afternoon. He looks real sharp today. I think Brian Scott now is getting a little discouraged.
Hands up, hands up.
Again, staying out there trying to feint with Buster Douglas with a master, that's the wrong thing to do. He's just got to let it all hang out. Just get picked apart if he stays at this distance.
Well, and this is what he said he would not allow Douglas to do, but I think maybe your point about his weariness may be taking effect here as well.
I think it would be mostly mental weariness. I mean, he's just being beaten at every phase of the game.
The warning from Steve Smoker, the referee, to Scott to watch his head inside.
See, earlier when Scott got nailed, he was punching back. Now he's much more in a defensive mode.
5th round, scheduled for 10. We're live from the Mohegan Sun on the CBS Sports Show. Next will be the final 2 show, live from Indianapolis. Tomorrow night, it's Kentucky and Arizona here on CBS.
And again, you see Scott not punching back.
Good combinations from Douglas.
When Douglas throws those combinations, Scott is wobbling now, Tim. He's wobbling.
He's got him down. A right and a left from Douglas sends him to the canvas. And a good combination by Douglas set that up. A 2-punch combination.
Hey, how we feel, big fella? Good. You want to come with me, Brian? Yeah.
He says good. I don't know how he can feel good after that. Got courage, but not much else now. Douglas looks like a master in there right now.
Now that time he just fell down trying to hang on to Buster Douglas.
Not a knockdown. Stand up.
And Steve Smoker saying it's not a knockdown, and it was not. He was trying to grab Douglas. Douglas pouring it on at the bell. Let's see whether Steve Smoker's going to count here or not. I guess they ruled the knockdown came after the bell. After the bell, so it is not a knockdown.
Tim, he is very wobbly. Took him 10 seconds to get him set, sitting down on the stool. He's in bad shape.
Brian Scott looks a little weary and shot here. He was able to get up after this. Here's the first knockdown. He told the referee he was fine after this one.
Well, he got set up with that good left jab again by Douglas. Right hand, left hook. And there's that left jab again. Douglas really is an excellent technician, well-schooled fighter.
And that's where you could see that he was just trying to hold on to keep himself up. And that one was ruled not a knockdown, but there's the first legitimate knockdown. So Buster Douglas, who won his first comeback fight with a 3rd-round TKO of Tony La Rosa, trying to finish off Brian Scott here as we head into the 6th round.
Douglas really looks sensational, Tim. Look at the way he's moving around here. Looks like a youngster in there. Combinations.
Douglas had to go the distance in his last 2 victories, but he's
over now.
Should do it. A big left hand, and James Buster Douglas steps over Brian Scott, and Steve Smoker said that's enough for the gallant effort of Brian Scott. But the former heavyweight champion of the world, James Buster Douglas, a 6th-round KO of a 272-pounder, his 2nd knockout victory since starting his comeback 3 bouts ago on June 22nd of last year.
I just got no bell ringing. Okay.
Brian Scott still protesting as though he'd like to continue.
You fought like a champion. That's right, bro. Keep your head up.
Game tried for Brian Scott, but outmatched by the technical abilities and the obvious desire on the part of James Buster Douglas to score a knockout win.
Tim, he looked absolutely sensational. Showed everything. Now watch Buster Douglas go to work here now, Tim. All that ambition. Right hand, left hook. Perfect timing, perfect combination.
Great concentration on the part of the former champion, keeping his eye on the target and punching very accurately once he knew he had a chance to put Brian Scott away, and he did so here in the 6th round of this scheduled 10-rounder. So James Buster Douglas suddenly finds himself back in the boxing spotlight, and perhaps, who knows, a chance at yet another world championship ahead. We're back at the Mohegan Sun, where James Buster Douglas has scored a 6th-round knockout. For the official word, let's go to ring announcer Mark Biero.
Ladies and gentlemen, the time, 30 seconds of the 6th round. The winner by technical knockout, James Buster Douglas.
James, congratulations. Great performance. You certainly convinced our Gil Clancy that you're very much in this title picture that lies ahead for you if you can keep putting together fights like that one. What was your assessment of this particular fight weighed against your first 3?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank God. It was a good win. You know, good skills, showed, movement. jab, working off the jab. You know, I was impressed with myself as well. You know, I did a good job. You know, I just got a little more work to do. You know, come down some more. I feel good. I'm strong. Thank you.
Wellness Center.
Wellness Center. You know.
The Wellness Center, all right.
Wellness Center in Naples, Florida.
Okay.
You know, did a great job, Greg. Thanks, Bill. Love you all.
Buster, let's take a look back at you, and you can see your own performance here. You had combination punching going. Now, this is a big target. You're not going to be facing heavyweights as big as this guy, and they may not be quite as stationary, but he's plenty tough.
That's right. He's tough. He took a lot of good shots. Right hand. You know, and you know, he did some things. He stood in there.
You seem to be very accurate with your punches once you knew you had him in trouble.
Well, yeah, the sharpness is coming. I mean, that's just something that you know, I'm working on, and you know, I feel good. You see, I got some poundage to lose myself. And
how much more do you think you need to lose, Buster? Because you're pretty close to your former fighting weight in the 230s.
Yeah. Well, really, I'm here, and the lower I go, the better I'll be. You know,
all right.
As far as endurance, anyway. You know, I feel real good this weight, but you know, I'm just training hard.
Are you feeling your age?
Yeah, I'm feeling every bit of my age. You know, and it feels good. I'm a young 36 years old. You got champions out there. Contenders 50 years old, so
well, that's at least one.
Age is even a factor.
That's right. Well, now, what do you think is next for you? How would you like to step up from here? What kind of an opponent?
Well, you know, we're going to sit down and Bob Brown, my dad, and John, we're going to, you know, decide on where we're going to go next. Just going to keep moving up.
Well, we wish you the very best, Buster, because this is quite a story coming back from nearly losing your life to getting back to what you do best and what you love to do. And I know most of America's boxing fans are hoping to see you in the top 10 and fighting again for the title.
I'll be there soon. I'm going to keep working hard and stay busy. I'd like to say hello to my kids, Lamar, Carday, Arthur. I'm fine. I'm on my way home.
All right. Well, congratulations to James Buster Douglas, former heavyweight champion of the world, a 6th-round KO. Brian Scott here. Well, Monday night, you all know Arizona takes up today on the Budweiser Boxing Series.